So selling your photographs at art shows, as I said, it's a whole different animal. The first thing is figuring out how to get into the right shows. Art shows are difficult, and there's a lot of competition just to get into them. It's not just something you sign up for, you pay a fee, and you get in, typically. Most of them are juried. So you pay an application fee, 40, 50, 60, $100. I mean, it can be that much. And you send an application, and it's usually through a company called Zapplications. Look them up online. And you fill out a profile on there, upload photographs as your portfolio. So when you apply for a show, you fill out the application on Zapplication and pay the fee, select pictures you want to show to that jury. The jury will look at your work, look at your application, and then determine whether or not they want you in the show. It's totally a crapshoot. It's just hit or miss, and trying to make a living off of that is really difficult, because you may get in one show one year, and then the next 5 years in a row, you don't get in that show. It's really hard to understand why you didn't get in. One of the tricks I learned is put in a body of work that is all cohesive. When you apply for an art show, don't show photographs of like a sunset over Horseshoe Bend in Arizona, and then an ocean scene in Oregon, and a picture of a castle in Scotland, and you usually get five or six pictures, and don't mix them up like that. I know in your brain you're thinking, well, I'm trying to show them a cross section of my work. It doesn't work that way. I learned the hard way. What you have to do is pick a theme and then stick with that theme. Like if you like to photograph forests in the fall, but you have lots of other stuff, pick forests in the fall if that's kind of your thing. Or like ocean scenes, pick that. Pick something that is all the same, cohesive. The one and only time I got into the Utah Art Festival, I haven't applied since then, that's why it's the one and only, but the one and only time I got into the Utah Art Festival, I could put in 3 applications, and one of the applications I put in was just architectural photographs of England and Scotland. That's what I got accepted on. I showed that stuff, and it took up a large portion of my walls, and I didn't sell, I did sell one piece. I took an order for one large canvas print of a picture in England. But it's one of those things where you also need to cater your work to the specific area that you're going to be showing your work. It's not always true. I know a photographer that lives in Arizona that his work is from all over the world: Greenland, Iceland, China, Vietnam. He even went and photographed in Chernobyl years ago, and got all these really cool shots of old buildings and like interiors of old buildings. He does pretty good at art shows with his eclectic mix of stuff. But I have found that generally to get into art shows, you want to be able to have a cohesive work that you show the jury. That's the first step. The second step at doing art shows is you need a good display, and they could be expensive. I have a Flourish trimline tent and pro panel walls. I bought my tent brand new. I upgraded it over the years, and now it goes up to 9 feet high. I've got awnings that can go on 3 sides, the front and 2 sides. But a good quality tent is a must. A lot of people will come into your tent, and if it's not a nice tent, it doesn't have a good display setup, they're not going to like your work as much. And a good tent is expensive. You can get by with an Easy Up. A lot of people do. I still own an Easy Up, but a trim line, a Flourish trim line, or something equivalent is really the way to go, because they're so nice, they're sturdy, they're strong, they won't blow over in the wind. You can zip them up nice and tight at night, and so if it rains, the water's not going to get in there. Also, the walls you use to hang your work on is extremely important. I have pro panels. They're very expensive, but that's what I use. I actually bought most of mine used. You can look around and you can find this stuff used if you look around enough. And I bought almost all my pro panels used, which saved me quite a bit of money. And then they had been modified by the guy I bought them from. They were 6 foot that had been modified to 7 foot, and he didn't do a very good job. And I remodified them and kind of brought them almost up to code, as it were, up to pro panel standards. And they look really good. I've got the extended legs on them and everything. So, but there's a whole can of worms in just doing art shows that you need to understand. The setup time and the teardown time, it's nuts. So, like doing like the Utah Art Festival, they give you a load-in time that you can show up and start loading in. Well, it's a wait-in-line game. You're sitting there waiting for people so you can get next, and you got to get unloaded quick. You can't leave your rig, your truck, your trailer, whatever. You can't leave it sitting there very long. So you got to get unloaded fast, get it over to where you're going to set up. So you get everything unloaded, and then you go move your vehicle to where you can park it, and then you go and you start setting up. And it can take, depending on your display and depending on how good you get at setting up and a system, you got to get a system down, practice at home before you ever do an art show. But it can take you anywhere from 4 to 8 hours or more to set up, just depending. And it's physically demanding. It's heavy and hard to do. And it's usually in the hot summertime, and you'll just be hating it. So, and then teardown's the same thing. Usually teardown is at night, so it's dark. It's nice that you're taking down in the dark, but then again, you need lights. If you're in a spot where you don't have a lot of lights, then you've got to have lights that you can actually see to take your work down, to take everything down and put it away. It really can be a nightmare. So those are a few things you need to understand about doing art shows if you want to start doing the art show circuit. Oh, one other thing. I don't think Rodney will care if I tell this story. Rodney Lowe Jr. is quite a well-known famous photographer, and I took a workshop from him recently. Got to know him a little bit better. And he talks about this on his website or on one of his blogs or something, and I asked him about it, and he talked about it during the workshop. The first show he did, and this guy's good. I mean, he's got 3 pieces hanging in the Smithsonian, and he was really good when he first started. The first show he did was a fair, like Colorado State Fair or something like that. It was the state fair, and he did that show and didn't sell 1 piece, and left just thinking, "Holy cow! What have I decided to do?" The next show he did was an actual legitimate art show, and he did really well. He was selling his pieces off the walls, and by the middle of the first day, by noon of the first day, he had sold everything he had taken. Then it was a 2-day show. He didn't have anything to sell. He had sold it off the walls, and people had walked away with it, and he was done. So pick the right shows. That's the point to this. If you're going to do an art show, don't just say, "Oh, well, I'm going to do this, little city art show that's a 1-day show, and I'm going to make a lot of money." It's not going to happen. Most likely. It could, but generally speaking, it doesn't. I did a little art show here in Utah. It was just a little city art show, 1 day. Was set up, tear down the same day, which is a total pain in the butt. It rained the whole day, so nobody showed up, and it cost me $35 to get in, so it wasn't a loss. but I literally made $35. I sold one small matter print for 35 bucks. Do your research. Do your research and find out what the good shows are, where they are. If you don't want to travel outside of your state, try to get into the local big time art show that the city you live in, but the big city has. It's tough to get into them. The Park City Art Festival here in Utah, for instance, is a big show. I applied, I don't know, 6-7 years. Never did get in. I kind of quit applying to those kind of shows. I found my own little thing that I do, these specific shows that I don't have to apply to get into. I do, but they want me back. They like me and they like my work and they want me there, so they let me back in. And I've do like 3 or 4 shows a year now, and it's just very specific to those shows, and I do well at them because I've got it kind of dialed in. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to watch next week's episode where I talk in depth about websites and how I went about creating the website I have and how to build a website that you can sell your art on and actually make money.